Welcome back, everybody. This is episode 103 at Streets and Eats. And today we are taking you to Crete, the best of Crete. We have spent a lot of time traveling in Greece for some reason over the past year and having a great time. Loving the food, loving the sights. Really, everything about Greece travel is amazing.
Yeah, we love it. Okay, so we get to do a trivia question this time.
Okay.
The last couple of podcasts, we weren't really doing them because
just didn't work.
Didn't work into our plan, and but we like doing a trivia question, so here we are. So I felt when I was in Crete that everything was pretty safe, wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah, for sure.
So it surprised me to learn this fact that there is something the Cretans have, a statistic that might surprise you more than all the rest of Europe.
Oh, wow.
What do you think it could be?
Seems like it's crime related.
I mean, it could be crime related.
Because you were talking about being safe and...
yes, this is associated with, I would say, crime, yes.
Wow. I would say in Crete, there is more kidnappings.
No. Well, if there is, I don't know about it.
No.
No.
Oh, no, wait. It's got to be, there's more home distillery of alcohol than anywhere else in Europe.
Well, we do have a little bit of a story about that, and that's a very good guess. I'm not sure how that equates to safety. Well, yeah, I guess I do. Anyway, no. Wrong train of thought.
Okay.
Okay, what do you think of when you think of, especially the United States, and safety? What's the first thing that pops in your head?
Driving safety.
That's a good one. No.
Not the first thing that pops in your head.
It's not controversial. This is a controversial topic in the United States.
For safety.
In the United States,
seatbelts.
What the Cretans have is very controversial in the United States. It's controversial.
You have the hardest damn trivia questions.
Okay, well, maybe it's because I'm trying to make it a little bit hard. Guns.
Guns?
Guns. They have the highest per capita of guns in all of Europe.
Wow. And
that's because everybody owns a gun. There's over 600,000 people. Every single one of them own a gun. So you might ask why. While we were there, we did see a few guns. But they were never used in a nefarious fashion. And in fact, they're usually not. Guns are ubiquitous, are integral to celebrations. Whether you're having a wedding or a baptism or your graduation party, what have you. One thing they like to do is shoot off guns.
Whoa.
And they are always going out for target practice. And while we were there, they were doing a little hunting. I don't know what they were hunting for. I don't know what the season was. But,
sure.
But they do like their guns. But they're safe, I guess. I mean, it's not controversial.
We never saw anything.
And we definitely never, not even once, not even a little bit felt unsafe.
No,
ever.
For sure. So, not at all.
I thought that was interesting because in the States, owning a gun and gun control and it's all,
Yeah. Well, I would have never guessed that. And we were there during Independence Day. And
I think we did see weapons at Independence Day, but they were more ceremonial kind of costumey.
And nobody was shooting them off.
Nobody was shooting them off while we were there. Of course, it was during the day.
Yeah, I'm sure that's more of a later in the afternoon
I assume that's an evening nighttime rakia type of thing.
Yeah. So it's kind of related to
the
distilling their own.
That's right.
Alcohol, rakia. So you never know.
That's right.
Hopefully they don't shoot off their guns while they've been distilling and drinking all their rakia.
We never heard any bad stories. Not even one. No. So, I mean, I guess that's a good thing.
Yeah. Well, okay, so Crete is a large island.
It's the largest island.
The largest island of Greece, for sure. I think it's like fifth largest in Europe or something like that.
Yes.
Seems like a statistic that sticks in my mind for some reason.
It's a correct statistic, I think.
We hope.
We have been to many, well, I wouldn't say many Greek islands, but we've been to,
thousands.
because there's thousands of them, but we have been to a number of Greek islands, and I'm here to tell you, I've enjoyed every single one of them.
Yeah. And they're all different.
And they're all completely different. Going to Crete, why do you go there? Like, why did we go there? Well, I'm going to be completely 100% honest with y'all. The reason we went is because it's cold, damp, and wet in Germany where we live during that time of year.
Late March, early April.
And quite frankly, in all of mainland Europe it is.
Yeah.
And England is. And the UK is. And even Northern Africa isn't really that warm. I mean, it's probably a good place to go too. But we were looking for someplace we hadn't been before. And someplace that was a little warm to get out into the sunshine during the day. And, one of our top criteria always is food. So my sister is still teaching in the system that we taught in. And she had spring break. And the three of us decided to take a jump to Cyprus. So
where are we going?
No, not to Cyprus. We'd already been to Cyprus.
There is a couple other factors involved there, too. When you're looking at spring break, traveling around Europe especially, you got things like Easter Sunday and Easter week that can really shut things down.
And this year, to add to the Easter holiday, was also Ramadan.
Yeah.
So we were trying to find some place that wasn't going to be really affected by, a holiday, because what holidays typically do, lots of different things, but one of the things they do a lot is, businesses will close down.
Yeah.
And in order to get to do more, you want to go when it's not a holiday season. As it turns out, it was still holiday season.
Well,
Crete, was
it holiday season?
What I like
or was it still closed?
It was still winter.
Low season.
Yeah. Anyway, I call it chasing April.
Yeah.
Because everywhere we went, it's like, oh, you're so lucky to slide right in there before April because the prices double in April.
Entrance prices were half price. That was really cool.
But there were more
but
options
there are
of things to do.
Closed that you couldn't do. That didn't open till April.
I gotta tell you, if I had to do it over again, and I probably won't do it over again because there's a lot of places to go in this world, I would probably go in April. I would go in April or October because November is the start of the low season and March is the end of the low season. And did we have wonderful weather? Yes. Did we have a really good time?
Had a great time.
But if there was a couple things I didn't get to do, and if it had just been a few days later, I could have done them. So in that respect, 2020 vision, right?
Yeah. Well, okay, so getting back to the Easter thing, some people might be saying, well, it was Easter weekend. What are you talking about? Okay, Greek Orthodox Easter.
It's not until May.
It's not at the same time as the regular Easter. Yeah, this year I think it's May.
May,
that's what they're telling us. So that didn't affect it at all. It was just the end of the low season, and things were starting to start up. We were able to get to the horseback riding,
but it wasn't technically open.
Not technically open.
We got to do a cooking lesson. Not technically open. The things that we did sort of kind of chase down to do, we kind of had to work out a little bit. And if we had come in April, just a week later, quite frankly, it would have been fine. So there's a little bit of advice for you. Wait till April.
Yeah. Or
don't
October,
go after.
like you said. Because it was too cold really to get in the water while we were there. And I'm sure it would still be cold in April. But if you came in October, last 2 weeks of October, say, before the low season starts again and things close down, the water's still going to be nice and warm. The weather's still going to be nice and warm. It's going to be good beach weather.
Well, we went to Cyprus in October and it was gorgeous Mediterranean weather. And we did go swimming during that time because the water was so warm. It was so just absolutely perfect. So, and I'm sure, Cyprus,
Crete's just a little bit further south.
Yeah. Okay, so that's why you go to Crete. You want to get out of the dreary weather, everywhere else, and you want to relax.
Eat some great food.
A lot of people want to go to beaches. Jim and I are not Well, I'm going to say
we're not beach people. I like
really much
walking
of a
the
beach
beach,
person.
and I like putting my feet in the beach, and we got to do that. And I mean, it was sunny pretty much the whole time we were there. I don't think we had any rain. And well, we did have some weather that blew in from Africa that brought some dust one day, but it cleared up pretty good. But it was still very warm. So you could still go to the beach, and there were people sitting on the beach.
There were people swimming,
in the water. So yeah, I mean, it was still doable if you're really into it. You could still do that for sure.
If that's what you're into. We're not into it, and so we're not going to force ourselves to do something that we're not into anyway.
I just stuck my feet in the water.
But a lot of people will go to Crete a lot for the beaches, of course.
Okay, so we had decided on Crete. Then we had to figure out how to get there.
Yeah.
And, okay, so there's two airports on Crete. One in Hania and the one in Heraklion. And so what I recommend, and this is what we did, we checked flights from all our nearby airports to either of the airports.
Yeah, because it's...
And, I mean, you might find that a flight from Frankfurt, for instance, to Hania is cheaper than the flight from Frankfurt to Heraklion. Yeah. We looked over the course of about a week, maybe a week and a half, before we finally pulled the trigger on the flight from Frankfurt to Heraklion.
And no, we don't have a gun.
No. Maybe after we go to Crete, we should go.
Just kidding, because
we should have one. I don't know.
It's an apt pun for the...
So the flight from Frankfurt to Heraklion goes through Athens. And that's the other thing to look at, too. There's flights to Heraklion from Thessaloniki, from Athens, from a few other places. And so it was kind of like putting together a puzzle to figure out, okay, if we fly to Thessaloniki, can we get a cheaper flight onto Heraklion or to Hania? And there's a lot of moving pieces there, but it just worked out.
And we've been to both Thessaloniki and Athens, many times Athens, before. And so that didn't really play into our decision-making process much, other than we were looking at price and availability and convenience, because Ernestine's only had those days that she was off because she's a teacher. And so, Jim and I being retired now, we don't have to worry about that so much. But we like to travel with people. It's more fun. Yeah. So, we're going to take into consideration what they can do. What's going to give us the most bang for our buck, so to speak. The other way you can get there is, if you're in Athens, is you can take a ferry.
Right.
The ferries, again, between April and October are running much more frequently. But even... during March, the ferry was running from Athens to Heraklion, and I think it's a daily ferry. Mm-hmm. And what the guy who took us to the airport told us, the taxi driver, they're always a wealth of information. He said it takes about 6 hours, but a lot of times they do it overnight, so you just go in and sleep all night, no big deal. You wake up, you're there. But he said it cost about the same amount of money as flying to Athens. That's what he told us.
He did say
that. He said, if it's me, he goes, I'm flying. And I have to agree. I love a ferry. I love a ferry. But if I'm just doing the ferry to get from point A to point B, and it's going to take me that many more hours.
And it's the same price.
Well, I don't know. The other side to it, though, is if it is the same price and you don't have to pay a hotel, maybe you're saving money that way. It's something that you have to look at and say, is that something for me?
And what's your personal preference?
Yeah, what your personal preference.
And if you have a car.
But I do love a ferry. And they were big ferries. We saw them when we went to get the car. Rent a car.
Yeah. And if you have a car, you can drive your car on the ferry and then have your car when you get to Crete, which is what a lot of people do, especially coming out of Northern Europe, with their campers and their camper vans and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we saw a few of those even in late March. They were already coming through.
Yeah. Anyway, so getting to Crete is pretty simple.
Pretty simple. It's a bit of a puzzle trying to figure out the best price. Ultimately, in the end, we went Sky Express, and it was an affordable price. It wasn't super cheap.
But
but
it was comfortable.
But it wasn't expensive. And
we were lucky. The flights were not crowded.
No, especially coming home.
I'm sure in April it would.
Coming home on Easter Day was like, we had half the airplane to ourselves. It seemed like.
Yeah, we were all comfortable.
Yeah, April it starts to fill up, I'm sure.
Anyway, so getting there isn't so bad. Once you get to Crete, getting around, if you're in Heraklion or in Hania, I mean, there's no reason
You don't need a
to
vehicle
do anything
in the
except
cities,
walk
for sure.
within the city. And maybe at night, if you got a little ways from your hotel, you might want to take a cab back to your hotel just because, you're
get
tired. And they are, pretty good sized cities, so you could easily get far away. But if you're pretty much staying in the downtown area, the old town, and you're staying somewhat close to there, I mean, we walked everywhere and it was no problem. Parking could be a little bit of an issue.
Yeah.
But both places had parking garages that were, I think, reasonable. €9 a day. Not so bad.
Yeah, and actually the one in Hania, the parking was included. So
it was with the hotel, but I was just in general if you had a car.
Okay, so we got there and we rented our car, but we flew into Heraklion. And we knew we wanted to spend the time in Heraklion.
Yeah, we were going to spend the whole time there, though.
So we arranged to pick up our car, instead of at the airport, down at the port, the cruise ship port, the ferry port, which was actually pretty close to our hotel and very close to the old town. I mean, the port is the old town, really.
Well, in fact, for the cruisers, they have a nice yellow painted line.
Right.
To follow all the way from the ship up to the old town.
The city center.
So you can't get lost.
And then back to the port.
And it's not a long walk.
Yeah. So
it is uphill, though.
So we chose not to pick up our car for the first couple of days because, we didn't need it inside of Heraklion at all. And but the place we did stay, the Ibis Styles Heraklion Old Town, I think it's called. There was a parking lot right there. Valet parking, €9 a day, like you said. Perfect. Really worked out good. And even though we had a couple of days in Heraklion without the car, we still got around a little bit using the city bus because it was so easy. And we wanted to get out to one of the sites. We're like, let's go take the bus to Knossos, and super easy. But you didn't really need to use the bus to get around the city. We walked.
I mean, I guess it depends on what you were going to do, but pretty much everything to see and do is in the old town anyway, so that's why we walked. But we did decide on Sunday to take the bus, the number 20 bus from Heraklion to Knossos. It was super duper easy. Yeah. The only mistake we made was, and I kind of knew this, but I didn't say it out loud.
And as I was doing it, I knew it too.
So bad on me. But anyway, was that we didn't buy 2 tickets. We should have bought tickets in the machine there and return. Because when you buy the tickets in the machine, it's, I don't know, cheaper. 20 or 30 cents cheaper.
You save a few euro cents.
Yeah. And, of course, we had to pay the driver coming back. And once you get out there, it's always more expensive to get back into a city than it is to leave the city. Because they know you don't really have any other choice. But the site was right at the bus stop. The guy who was driving was like, he made an effort to stop. Because I would say all but 2 people on the bus were going to Knossos. And he was like, Knossos! And then we all look up and he's like, Knossos. So we're like, oh, that's us. Yeah, that's us. It was super, super duper easy. And that will be in another video. We will talk about Knossos we'll talk a little bit about it. But it's the number 1 site to see on Crete.
Yes.
And you're going to go there.
For sure.
And I guess our point is, and then you don't need to take a tour because once you get to the gate, you can hire a guide. I don't know how much the guides were. We didn't really entertain that thought. I'm the type person that does a lot of research on my own. Right. And then I read, the placards and take pictures of the placards when I'm on the site. So someone yabbering in my ear, I'm really not into that. I like to go at my own pace. But a lot of people do like it. And they were right there. And it was easy to get them. But they were good English speakers. And, I mean, that's the way to do it. And it's a lot cheaper than paying, 30 or 40 or 50 euros per person to go on a tour. A lot cheaper. So that would be our...
I agree. And I'm the type of person, I do the research too beforehand, or I just kind of glom onto what you researched. But I like to get to the site and just look at it and decide for myself or make up my own ideas about what things were and why they were there and how they were used. Because more often than not, it was just somebody else's guess anyway that the guide's going to tell you.
Well, and in fact, was it Knossos that was really obvious that the guy who was rebuilding it made assumptions about what things were, and he
Yes.
wasn't always correct. Evans, I think his name was.
That's right.
A British
and he
anthropologist.
solidified it in cement to
And
help preserve the site.
Cemented that idea.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I do think a lot of people like to have the guides, and that's fine. You want to get the most out of your trip, but you don't have to take a tour to get out there. It was really super easy.
Bus was easy.
So anyway, you can ride the bus. We rented a car. Renting a car was super easy.
And it was inexpensive. That was one of the cheapest cars that we had rented, I think, over the last year or two.
They didn't really browbeat you into buying the extra insurance either. She mentioned it.
It was a pretty good experience overall. And it's a small island, so it's not like you're using a lot of gas, because gas can be expensive in Europe. Driving around was really easy. Now, that might change. After
there
April.
wasn't that many people because we were there in March.
But in March, it was very easy driving around. Only on the main highway between Heraklion and Hania. That's the only place I saw speed cameras. But they had speed cameras.
But here's how you drive in Crete. Here's the only thing you really need to know. You're driving down the road, whether it's a 1 lane, 2 lane, 3 lane, however many lane, and there's a car in front of you. But it's a little curvy or it's a little hilly.
And there's not a passing lane.
And there's not a passing lane. Or there is, but there's still not room.
But there is a shoulder.
There is a shoulder, and the shoulder becomes a lane. And it is so common. All they do is they pull over, and then you go right around them. There's cars coming this way.
They've got a shoulder too, so they'll move over. Everybody's kind of in the same boat driving, and everybody drives the same way. So it just works out. It's a little disconcerting at first.
And it was very obvious to us after, I would say, by the second day of our driving around the island.
But that's how it was.
Well, not just that, but who wasn't used to doing it. And then we're like, that must be a rental car. And this is a place where they plaster the cars with the stickers. So we couldn't wait to get up there. Oh, yep, Avis, rent-a-car guy, because he was not going to pull over. He wasn't going to pass until there was one guy. We must have followed him at least for 10 minutes, which
at least
is interminable when you're trying to get somewhere.
Truck in front of him would get over into the shoulder, and still wasn't a passing lane, but he would be like right behind the truck so that if somebody else did want to pass, they couldn't get around him. And so it was funny. You definitely saw a lot of that, and we'd be like, oh, okay, they're not locals. We knew that.
But to be honest, it wasn't like it was frustrating or anything.
No stress.
Everybody's relaxed. Everybody's super friendly. Everybody's super courteous. It was just chuckleable.
Yeah.
Chuckleable? Yeah. I like making up words.
Just funny.
So we rented a car because our main idea was to do half the time in Heraklion and half the time in Hania, because they both have so much to offer.
Yeah.
We were taking off, our flight was into Heraklion, so that's where we started. And then we went to Hania, and then of course we had to go back to Heraklion to take our flight.
Right.
I think the way we cut up the days, I may lean towards spending more time in Hania than we did. We didn't get as much time to go out into the countryside there over our 10-day trip. But, it's all... And
it's not a big island, so you can definitely get places with a car without spending too much time driving. Although, you look at a map and you see this town is here and this village is here, and it looks pretty close. But once you start driving and the road starts winding around and up and down and around, what looks like 30 kilometers that should take maybe at the most 30 minutes could end up taking an hour.
Well, and then...
Especially if you're following your Google Maps.
We were following Google Maps, and we thought, well, we're the kind of people that don't necessarily always want to go up and back.
Yeah.
Even though I do believe you see things a little bit differently depending on which way you're going. We still prefer maybe to do like a circular type of motion so that we can see more. So we tried this.
Yeah,
Where were we going? Do you remember? Oh, we were going to Cornus Lake.
Yeah, that just does not work anywhere on Crete, I don't think.
No.
Once you get over the mountains.
Well, even kind of up to the mountain.
But yeah, going into the mountains, there are several roads. As you look at the map of Crete, heading south, there's several roads that go, to the south and through the mountains. And if you look and you zoom in, you'll see little roads that do connect to those larger roads. But when we tried to take one of those, it quickly became...
it was a goat path.
Goat path.
And it was literally a goat path. So one of the one of the things that Crete is known for, their specific goat variety called a Crete. And I don't know, because I don't know what a Crete looks like, but these were well-pampered goats.
Yeah.
And the shepherd was not real happy that we were driving through them. But, I mean, what were we to do? And we
drove slow.
There must have been hundreds of them.
We didn't bother them. They just kind of moved along.
They were bleeding.
But yeah, he was like, I know you're following a route on a map that is not going to work, and you're going to just be coming right back by me in about 10 minutes.
I don't think it was even 10 minutes.
It wasn't.
As
soon as we got past them,
the goats, and we're
turned
like,
into a mountain path.
We're not doing this anymore. And then, so that happened to us. And then the very next day, we're going somewhere else, and we're like, oh, it says to turn down this road. And we're like,
no.
Maybe we're not going to turn it.
We learned our lesson the day before.
Yeah, but then we end up saying, okay, let's try it. And it ended up being a nice road. Like, you couldn't tell until you were on the road whether or not it was going to be, really a decent road or not. It was fun. I mean, that's why we were driving.
That's why we get the car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so we spent about half the time in Carmian, and we spent a little bit more time in Heraklion just because that's where we
I think we did
landed.
5 nights Heraklion, 3 nights Chania, and then the last night was Heraklion just because we had an early morning flight.
Yeah. So I think I would have taken a day at least and switched it over to the other side.
But there is a lot to do out of Heraklion, which is why we kind of went that route. However, what I think would be better, because we looked at a few different like agroturismo places where they have different activities that you can do during the day, and you would stay there overnight, and they're great places to stay.
Between April and October.
You have to be there in April, October. So those weren't really an option for us. I think that would definitely change. I would probably do like 3 nights Heraklion, 3 nights Chania, and then however many other nights I had at different points around the island doing those different types of things.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Those different experiences.
There's plenty to do. Okay, so what did we do? While we were in Heraklion, what did we do? We, the very first day, we had to get down to the harbor. And that's one of the most fun things we like to do is, of course, you go to the old town and wander around and go in the churches and, look at all the souvenirs and watch the cafes and the people just having a good old time.
Yeah.
And we like a good harbor. So we went down to the harbor, and then down on the harbor is this Venetian fort, which is beautiful.
Stunning. And of course, the fishing boats, the small fishing boats, they're all lined around the harbor as well. And maybe it wasn't like fishing season, or because it was daytime, they'd probably been out fishing all night.
Yeah.
And now they were just kind of parked, smoking their cigarettes, repairing their nets, and chatting and visiting each other on their boats. Kind of like that fishing community right there that you get to like walk around and see.
We did have excellent fish while we were there. So that was nice.
We did.
So we went through the Venetian fortress. That was really nice.
Great museum.
For all the things that we did, we'll have our little travel bite videos. So be looking for those on our YouTube channel to see what we did. And of course, articles on our website, Reflections Around. But we went to the Venetian fortress. We went to, one of the big things we did on the very first day was go to the archaeological museum.
Excellent museum.
And the reason the reason people who like history go to Crete is to go to the Palace of Knossos.
Yeah.
It's the Minoan Palace. It's where the Minoan Labyrinth was. It's steeped in Greek mythology with Hercules and Zeus and blah, blah, blah.
Mythological
and it's
period.
Wonderful stuff. But just like many places in the world, you have the site, and you might have a couple of things on the site, maybe a fresco or something. But typically, almost everything, and in this case,
Everything.
like almost everything, like everything, is removed from that site and put into a much safer place, and that's going to be the main archaeological museum. So it was kind of nice that we went there, and we saw, the gold, and we saw the religious artifacts, and we saw the graves, and we saw bathtubs, and we saw frescoes, and we saw statues, and it
Weapons,
wasn't
jewelry.
this overwhelmingly huge museum, but it was well done.
It was packed in there.
And it was
excellent
good stuff.
signage.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people there the day we were there.
It was, this was probably the most crowded thing that we did, actually.
I'm not really sure why. Seemed like maybe a group of like high school students that were on a European trip just happened to be there that day.
I don't think it was just them. There were older people there too. There was a couple of tours there.
Maybe even a cruise ship that had come.
It might have been a cruise ship.
But we didn't see a lot of cruisers anywhere else, so I don't know about that. Well, okay, yes, I love that museum. But my favorite museum in Heraklion, and one that we didn't passed by.
We didn't really think about it before we went there. We sort of, I'm not going to say stumbled upon it. It's not like we didn't know it existed. It just, I don't know.
We saw some signs for it, and we thought, okay, it's a small museum. But oftentimes those small museums are really good. They're well curated, and that was the case here. And it was the Katsanis Museum of Ancient Greek Technology, which we're both technologists, of course. And I thought I knew something about ancient Greek technology. No, I didn't.
Oh my goodness!
I knew about Archimedes' screw to get water out of the river and up the bank and that sort of thing.
But some of the things they had here, they had a robot that was like made in 300 BC
that served wine.
There's
a lot of wine serving.
There was
technology.
a lot of the technology. Wine was important, right? There was a vending machine.
Yeah.
There was. I can't even remember everything there was. Look at the video that we have.
And we'll do a travel bite on it too.
Yeah. But, we were blown away. Now, I do have one criticism about it, and that was, she said when we were going in, if there's something you want to do, call me over and I'll let you do it. Well, when we called her over, the answer was no. So I'm not so sure how that really works. Maybe if you have groups, they're much more open. She did do a demonstration for us. Yeah. Upstairs, the guy taught us some of the games and stuff. We had a great time, but there was a lot to read. There were videos. In some ways, it was really advanced as far as museum goes. But I still, the teacher and me,
would have liked more hands-on.
I would like a little bit more hands-on.
And they were all reconstructions, so it wasn't like this was actually ancient Greek technology on display. There were reconstructions using the notes of the Greek philosophers and the Greek scientists of the time. And so they were well constructed, and it seemed like everything could have been used.
In saying that, we were blown away.
Yeah.
Ernestine, Jim, and I were all 100% just blown away on the things that we learned that the Greeks did way back, way back. It was just amazing to me. I highly recommend that museum.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we did do that.
Okay, my favorite church was in Heraklion, too. Now, we did go to some really amazing mountain monasteries.
One thing that...
Which were pretty incredible. But
one thing that you do on Crete is go to monastery after monastery after monastery. It's almost as monastery heavy as Meteora is.
Probably, maybe more.
Maybe even more so, except that Meteoras are, amazing. These are amazing in a different way.
But the Church of Titus in Heraklion is like right in the middle of the old town.
Right there.
Beautiful structure. Didn't really know anything about it. I got up there, I'm reading the signage outside, and it talks about how St. Titus's skull is enshrined inside of this church.
Well,
that's pretty cool.
Reliquaries are such a big thing.
I'm fascinated by relics and reliquaries, for sure. So you walk through the church, and it's very typical Greek Orthodox.
Beautiful, stunning.
Icons everywhere, amazing artwork, just a serene feel, quiet, Of course, the incense that's been burned gives it a permanent, just kind of a holy smell, if you will. I don't know how to say it otherwise.
It's part of the ambiance, right? It's kind of this almost, it's not really cloudy, but it feels kind of cloudy and murky and a little bit mysterious, I think.
Mystery. That's good. So we walk around the church, and I'm like, well, I don't see this skull anywhere. But as you're walking out, there's a little alcove off to the side. And that's where the reliquary with the skull was. And
not only was it there, encased in this gorgeous ballast or
gold
whatever vase.
Chalice.
Yeah, I guess ballast is the word. Anyway, in this golden encasement.
Yeah.
It was really interesting. Jim's like, well, I saw it. I'm like, what? I had to go back in there. And oh my goodness, there's this mirror, and you look at the mirror, and it shows you
down inside
the opening, and it shows you the actual skull. So that was pretty darn cool, actually.
Yeah, one of the better relic experiences that we've had.
And we kind of seek them out because we're kind of weird that way, but it's kind of fun. Anyway, so that was neat. What else?
I think another one of the really big, not big, nope, I'm spinning everywhere. One of the other really good main attractions and popular attractions in Heraklion is the Lion Fountain. It is. The Venetian Lion Fountain. It's ancient. It's beautiful, carved marble. The fountain wasn't running while we were there because it wasn't April yet. But they do keep water flowing through the base of the fountain. And it's clean water, and it's like in marble, so it's just beautiful.
So the fountain is pretty. It's really pretty. But what's even more interesting about the fountain is all the way around it, there's a kind of roads that kind of converge there. On it, yeah. And then there are pedestrian roads. I mean, there's the occasional Vespa, but it's pedestrian primarily. And there are cafe after restaurant after hookah lounge after souvenir store after whatever. And so it's a really fun place. And
very lively.
And so we went to this one cafe, not once, but twice, because it is that worth it. It's called Philosophies, and it's all about the bugazza.
Yeah.
And bugazza, I came away with a brand new favorite. I mean, it's kind of like a breakfast food for them.
Sure.
But it's also eaten all through the day, then kind of turning into more of a dessert kind of item. But you go there and you have your coffee and bugazza. So we did go there for breakfast the first time. And then the second time we went there in the afternoon for sort of like a coffee bugazza.
Yeah, an afternoon coffee and bugazza before dinner.
And there'll be more about that. In fact, I'm going to try and make it and figure out a recipe for it.
Okay.
So the thing is, one thing that makes the bugazza is the Mizrita cheese that they, produce right there on Crete, which is an amazing cheese and it's delicious. And I don't know how widely available it is. I'm going to look for it. But there's got to be something that will sort of give you the same sort of feeling as a Mizrita cheese. So that's my goal. I got to figure it out.
Right. We should be able to find
Mizrita. Huh?
We should be able to find Mizrita cheese somewhere around here.
But we also need an alternative.
Yeah.
Even if we can find it, not everyone all the time is going to be able to find it. So you need to have alternatives. But anyway, so we did that, and that was amazing because the Lion Fountain is pretty. That's where all the people are. There's kids playing soccer. There's moms with their babies. There's, the first morning we were up there sitting right next to a judge, and I don't know who he's with. He didn't know these people. That was obvious. I don't know if they were clients or if they were just acquaintances or what they were, but they were sort of having a little business meeting. And no, we didn't eavesdrop because, we don't speak Cretan or Greek, so we had no idea what was going on. But he was important, and they bent over backwards for him. Whatever he wanted, he got. And I don't just mean food. I mean, he had a package delivered.
Halfway through the meal, the head waiter down at the bottom was like, we have a table. He's like gesturing up to him because we're up on the balcony.
Yeah.
He's like, we have a table. Do you want to move down? And he's like, no, we're comfortable.
It was funny.
It was kind of funny.
They definitely deferred to him. But anyway, so that was pretty cool. And we did have, I would say, the food everywhere was good.
Yeah.
I can't say if it was better in Heraklion or in Crete, in Chania. But we did have, I think my favorite restaurant was Pesquesi, and that is in Heraklion. And we actually went there twice.
Excellent everything. Farm to table. And they even show you and tell you on the menu how far away the farm is from the restaurant.
For every single dish that they make. This one's 50 kilometers away. This is 140 kilometers away. But everything's from the island. Pretty cool.
Great really wine list. Okay, so from Heraklion, we went up into the mountains. We did a couple of things.
We went horseback riding.
So you guys did horseback riding. I skipped the horseback riding. I'm not much of a horseback rider, unfortunately. I just took a nap in the car. It felt pretty good, actually. The breeze was blowing. You could smell the fig trees and, of course, the horses.
It was really nice. Our horseback ride was through the vineyards. Crete is known for their wine, so there was vineyards.
Olive orchards.
It is spring, so there's so many spring flowers. The almond trees had finished blooming, and now they were just growing the spring nuts, and we were eating the spring nuts, which I didn't even know you could do. So that's something I knew about. And then there were, just like everywhere else, there were sheep and dogs and, lots of people. Oh my. It was a lot of fun. It was a nice afternoon. It was warm. It was comfy. I had a pretty good horse. That always makes a difference. And Ava, the girl who was running it, just cracked me up the whole time. She did have a long-standing, she kept talking pretty much the whole time. I didn't hear her the whole time because my horse liked to be in the back of the pack. But at the same time, I really enjoyed myself. So
we actually saw a few places where you could do horseback riding in Crete. So if that's something you're into,
you could do it there for inexpensive. It was €50 for 2 hours. I mean, I think that's a good price.
So on to Hania, where we spent a couple more nights. We were looking for places to stay in the old town. Got really pricey, much pricier.
Hania was more expensive than Heraklion.
For sure. And parking was an issue in Hania, Old Town, especially as well. So we kind of went a little bit further, like to the edge of the Old Town, and maybe even like one or two streets past the Old Town.
It turned out to be fantastic. I mean, we didn't plan it this way. We just were basically going on what we could get. But the one thing I wanted to do, I'm all about Bugazza now, is go to the most famous Bugazza place on the entire island called Jordanes. And this place is this hole in the wall where, I mean, all the locals go. There were no other tourists there. Now, I think tourists do go there. We were there.
Oh, yeah, of course.
But
everybody's heard about it.
There were no other tourists there when we were there. They were just locals. They go there for their coffee and their Bugazza, and they don't serve anything else. They serve
a glass of water.
Yeah, that's it. They don't serve anything. Well, you had mountain tea.
Oh, yeah. Well, you can get coffees or teas.
Right.
But when you get your Bugazza, you get a glass of water with it. And I think probably you could tell the tourists in the place by who's ordering a coffee.
Oh, no, I saw a lot of the great.
Did you? Okay.
Anyway, it was someplace we wanted to go. And it ended up being, a 3-minute walk from our hotel?
Yeah, so our hotel was not in the old town. It was about a block or two up from the old town. Beautiful apartment. Well decked out for cooking and everything. For
2 full bedrooms.
Self-catering, it was great. Mm-hmm. Parking on site for free. And I was a little worried because I thought it was too far from the old town.
It even had a washing machine, which I don't know about you guys, but if I'm doing self-catering, I want a washing machine.
But once we started looking at, walking into the old town from there, 2 blocks down the road towards the old town is Jordanes, where we stopped for our coffee and our Bugazza for breakfast. About another 2 blocks from there is the Hania open air market.
Which was under renovation.
Which is under renovation. It's an old Venetian market area that looks beautiful. But of course, right now, it has the steel fence running around it, and you can only see kind of the structures inside.
So we didn't get to go.
We didn't get to go there. But then that's pretty much the old town, the beginning of the old town.
The leather streets, right off.
Walk through the leather street.
And then you go down, and then you're in the old part of the town where the harbor is, and the Egyptian lighthouse,
the old churches.
Museum, and there's churches, there's an old synagogue, there's the port office, lots and lots of cafes and restaurants, and everything that you need to do, the Byzantine Museum, all of that stuff. So we did do all of that. And we really had a good time. And the weather was spectacular.
Beautiful.
And, it was just really kind of magical. I mean, you just were enjoying the sun.
Beautiful day just to sit in a cafe at the harbor, watch people. There weren't a lot of boats going through, but the people watching, the birds flying around, the water, just looking at the water and the Egyptian lighthouse. Like you couldn't take your eyes off.
Yeah, it was stunning.
Beautiful.
Stunning. We did all that. And then the restaurant we really enjoyed in Kadia, other than Jordana's, because that might be my favorite thing for the entire island ever. But
it'd be hard to call that your favorite restaurant.
But
because it's just
Bugazza.
Yeah.
Was Tamam. And we had heard about that from a guy who was stationed at Suda Bay, which is a base that is a naval base, American naval base that's there in
just outside of Hania.
And he told us that was his favorite restaurant, and now we know why.
That's good.
One of the things you're supposed to try when you're in Crete is the goat, and I know people shy away from those kinds of foods, but I'm here to tell you,
goat is usually delicious everywhere we go.
Slow roasted or slow cooked in a little ceramic dish goat, delicious.
Never gone wrong.
Anyway, the whole meal was amazing. And then some of the things we did that wasn't in either Heraklion or Hania, we went to the Matala Beach. We went to this really impressive monastery called Arkady that my friend Lisa had told me about.
Oh yeah.
And that one, Jim was verklempt.
Just
he was so
and
over the moon. He's like trying to read me this story, and he's
choking up on it. It was hard. I mean, yeah, Crete has had a rough history of surviving through invaders and being put through slavery and just really a hard history. Constant. The Byzantines, the Ottomans,
the Venetians.
The Venetians. They all came in and like took over, and Cretians be damned. This is our place now. And they suffered a lot for it.
They did.
And one of the places where that is really evident, and to see their resilience, was Arkady Monastery. And here, this was during the Ottomans, when the Ottomans had come in. And there's Arkady Monastery had become like this final sanctuary for the villagers and the people who lived around the monastery. And they were all in the monastery when the Ottomans attacked. And
it was a slaughter.
It was a slaughter, basically. And it came down to a small group, one of the
monks,
priests, and
women and children
that were all kind of holed up in the powder magazine. And the priest knew what would happen if those women and children were actually captured alive. So after talking to them, they decided put a match to the powder.
Well, I don't know if they decided, but he decided at any rate.
And blew the whole thing up.
And
took out some of the Ottomans, but just a really...
It's a very touching written story written by Victor Hugo, who is one of Jim's and my ultimate literary heroes.
Keep finding him in places that you don't expect.
We've chased him all over the world because he is so prolific and such a personality. I mean, just lately, he was on Guernsey, the Isle of Guernsey, and just things like that. We keep chasing.
We find him. We find that he's been to these places, and I'd never expected him in Crete. But yeah, he had written an article for a local paper, like just describing what had happened, and that was a hard one to read out loud because he's such a good writer.
Now, the monastery itself is very photogenic. It's beautiful. But I guess with the one caveat, there's a lot of pigeon poop. Like, a lot of pigeon poop. Like, there's this whole beautiful gallery that you can't take a bad picture. There's snow-crusted, snow-covered mountains over here. There's a bell tower here. And there's this beautiful arch window. I've got pictures of it. You'll see it. And they're stunning. But meantime, you're like, oh, don't poop on me. Don't step in pigeon poop. Where am I? So it's kind of like, I mean, I suffer from my art. That's all I'm going to say. Anyway, so that was a really cool place. And I don't know. We found and we went to Cornus Lake, but it was shut down. One of the things that's really popular, more in the summer. is roasting lamb or goat or pork or whatever on a spit. And they did actually have one in Cornice, but there was nothing to do. There was not really any paths to walk. And they had just put the meat on. Otherwise, we would have probably had lunch there because that was something I wanted to do. But and there was nowhere else on the island that we found it that early. I'm sure a week later there would have been plenty. At any rate, there was plenty to do. We filled up our 10 days. Yeah. And in fact, we could probably go back and fill up another 5 to 10 days because, we like to do things. Oh, one of the things we did all day was a cooking lesson.
Yes.
Which we love, and that was no exception.
And the Cretan food is so good that it was really cool to be in the kitchen of this woman who's been living on and off Crete for pretty much her entire whole life. Yeah. And just listening to her stories was a blast.
Yeah, that's why I love a cooking lesson. Anyway, so we'll be doing some cooking, and there was some just delicious food. She made a lamb with green beans. Now here, let me tell you, if I saw lamb with green beans on a menu, I would not order it. I wouldn't order it. I would not order it.
But it was delicious.
It might have been the best thing I ate the entire week.
Yeah. It
was so good. Like I'm dreaming about it. So good. Anyway, so I'm going to try and replicate it. And anyway, we did a cooking lesson. We did the horseback riding. We went to archaeological site after archaeological site. Knossos, which is like the crowning glory, was pretty spectacular, I would say. And you had to do that with the archaeological museum to get the most out of it.
Yeah, it really did.
Otherwise, it's a ruin. But there was plenty to do in lots of monasteries. We didn't go to, we went to what? Maybe 3 or so, but there were plenty more that you could go to. We went to Matala Beach, but of course, it's an island, so there's tons of beaches.
Yeah.
We did a lot, and we had a lot of fun, and I think we could go back. We ate a lot of good food,
drank a lot of good wine.
I think the bottom line is, if you haven't been to Crete, go.
Go. You'll love it.
You will.
All right. Thanks for listening to this episode of Streets and Eats. If you liked what you heard, please show us some love, hit the like button, and leave us a review. Maybe even subscribe so you don't miss any future podcasts. Also, we'd love it if you joined us on our Facebook private group, Streets and Eats, where we just have an ongoing conversation about all things travel. Ciao for now.